Have you ever made a budget that looked perfect on paper? You sat down. You did the math. You allocated every dollar. You felt so organized, so responsible, so in control. And then, 2 weeks later, the budget was completely useless. You weren't even close to following it, and you felt like a failure. Here's what nobody tells you about budgeting. The reason it doesn't work isn't because you're bad with money. It's not because you lack discipline. It's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because traditional budgeting is fundamentally broken. It's based on assumptions about human behavior that are just wrong. It ignores how our brains actually work, and it sets you up to fail from day one. Here at Simple Money, we've talked to hundreds of people who've tried budgeting. Dedicated people, smart people, people who desperately want to get their finances under control. And we've discovered something fascinating. The people who succeed with money almost never follow traditional budgets. And the people who fail aren't failing because of their budgets. They're failing because of their budgets. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why budgeting doesn't work the way people expect. And more importantly, what actually does work instead. Here's what's really happening. When most people think about budgeting, they imagine it works like a diet. You set limits, you track everything, you stay disciplined, and if you follow the plan, you succeed. Seems logical, right? And that's exactly what every budgeting app, every financial advisor, every money book tells you to do. Make a budget. Stick to it. Problem solved. But here's the reality. 90% of people who make a budget abandon it within 3 months. 90%. That's not a discipline problem. That's a system problem. Think about it. If 90% of people who try something fail, the problem isn't the people. It's the thing they're trying. Imagine a car manufacturer designed a car where 90% of drivers crashed within 3 months. Would we say those drivers are bad at driving? Or would we say the car is badly designed? Budgets are badly designed. They're built on 3 fundamental misunderstandings about human psychology. And once you see these misunderstandings, you'll realize why you've been fighting a losing battle. The first problem is what I call the scarcity trap. Here's how traditional budgeting works. You look at your income, you look at your expenses, you create categories. Rent, groceries, entertainment, whatever. And you assign a specific dollar amount to each category. So you might say, okay, I can spend $200 on entertainment this month. That's my limit. That's my budget. And what happens? The moment you set that limit, your brain starts obsessing about it because you've created artificial scarcity. You've told yourself you can't have something you want. And here's the thing about humans. We're absolutely terrible at dealing with restrictions. In fact, the fastest way to make yourself want something is to tell yourself you can't have it. Psychologists call this reactance. When you restrict your freedom, your brain automatically pushes back. It wants what it can't have, even more than it wanted it before. So you set a $200 entertainment budget, and suddenly you're thinking about all the things you want to do. That concert, that new video game, that night out with friends. Things you might not have even cared about last month. But now they feel urgent because you've been told you can't have them, or you can only have a little bit, and your brain rebels against that restriction. This is why dieters obsess about food, why people who quit smoking can't stop thinking about cigarettes, why budgets make you want to spend money more, not less. You've created psychological scarcity, and scarcity creates craving. The second problem is even worse. What I call the abstraction problem. Budgets deal with abstract future predictions. You're sitting there in January saying, I'll spend $300 on groceries in March. I'll spend $150 on gas in May. But here's the thing. Your future self and your current self are basically different people. And your current self is terrible at predicting what your future self will need or want. You make your budget on a Sunday afternoon when you're feeling responsible and motivated. But you have to follow that budget on a Wednesday night when you're exhausted, hungry, and your car just broke down. Your Sunday self says, I only need $300 for groceries. I'll meal prep, I'll bring lunch to work every day. Easy. Your Wednesday self is standing in a grocery store after a 10-hour shift. You haven't eaten since breakfast. Everything looks amazing. And your brain is screaming at you to buy the convenient, prepared food, not the ingredients you need to cook later when you're even more tired. Sunday self has no idea what Wednesday self is going through. They're different people with different needs, different energy levels, different emotional states, but traditional budgeting treats them as the same person. It assumes you'll feel the same and want the same things every single day of the month. Which is absurd when you think about it. You wouldn't schedule every minute of your day for the next 3 months and expect to follow it perfectly. Life happens. Things change. You change. But that's exactly what budgets ask you to do with money. Predict and control every dollar weeks or months in advance, based on how you feel right now, not how you'll feel then. The third problem is what I call the perfection trap. Budgets are all or nothing. You either stay within your limits for every category, or you've failed. There's no middle ground. You budget $150 for restaurants, and you're doing great. You've spent $120. You're under budget. You're winning. Then your friend invites you to dinner for their birthday. The meal costs $40. Now you're $10 over budget for restaurants. And here's what happens in your brain. You've already failed. You've broken the budget. The whole system feels ruined. So what do? Do you say, okay, I'm $10 over this month, no big deal, I'll adjust next month? No. You say, well, I already broke the budget, so what's the point? And you stop tracking. You stop caring. You spend another $100 before the month is even over. This is called the what the hell effect. Once you break your self-imposed rule, you figure you might as well go all in on breaking it, because the damage is done. It's the same reason dieters who eat one cookie end up eating the whole box. They've broken their diet, so in their mind, the day is ruined anyway. Might as well enjoy it. Budgets create this same trap. One slip, one unexpected expense, one moment of weakness, and the whole thing falls apart. Because budgets demand perfection, and humans are not perfect. We're messy. We're emotional. We have emergencies and surprises and bad days. Budgets have no room for that reality. So they break. Every single time. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Because there's a deeper reason why budgeting fails. Something that goes beyond just these 3 traps. Budgets are fundamentally backward. They focus on restriction instead of direction. On limits instead of goals. On what you can't do instead of what you want to achieve. And here's what nobody wants to admit. You don't actually have a spending problem. You have a priority problem. Think about it. You're not failing to budget because you lack willpower. You're failing because you don't actually agree with the priorities your budget is forcing on you. Your budget says you can only spend $50 on coffee shops this month, but you're spending $150. Why? Because getting coffee isn't just about caffeine. It's where you meet friends. It's your break from a stressful job. It's a small pleasure in your day that makes you feel human. So when your budget tells you to cut that spending, you're not just cutting coffee. You're cutting connection, stress relief, and joy. Things you need to function. No wonder you can't stick to it. You're fighting against your own actual needs. Trying to force yourself to be a different person with different values and different priorities. Let me tell you about 2 people who approached money very differently. Meet Jennifer. Jennifer was so frustrated with her spending. She made decent money, $60,000 a year, but she could never save anything. So she did what everyone told her to do. She made a budget, a detailed one, every category carefully planned. $400 for groceries, $200 for gas, $100 for entertainment, $50 for coffee, $150 for shopping, $30 for subscriptions. She had it all figured out. And for the first week, she felt amazing. She was tracking every expense, entering receipts into her app, staying under budget. Finally, she was in control. Then life happened. Her car needed an oil change. She forgot about that. $70 gone. Okay, she could handle that. Her mom's birthday was coming up. She needed a gift. Another $50. Getting tighter, but manageable. Work got crazy. She was too exhausted to cook. Take out 3 nights in a row. There went another $60 from the grocery budget. By week 3, she was over budget in 4 different categories. And she felt terrible. Like a failure. Like she couldn't do this simple thing that everyone else seemed to handle fine. So she stopped tracking. Stopped caring. Spent the rest of the month however she wanted. Because what was the point? She'd already failed. The next month, she tried again. Made a new budget. This time, she'd be more careful. More realistic. She added a little extra to each category to account for surprises. Same result. By week 3, something unexpected happened. She was over budget again. And again, she gave up. After 6 months of this cycle, Jennifer had convinced herself she was just bad with money, that she lacked discipline, that she'd never figure this out. But here's the thing. Jennifer didn't have a discipline problem. She had a system problem. She was using a tool that was designed to fail. Now let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus made about the same as Jennifer, also struggled to save, also tried budgeting and hated it. But Marcus did something different. Instead of trying to restrict his spending, he automated his saving first. On payday, Marcus's bank automatically moved $500 to a separate savings account. Before he saw it, before he could spend it, before he could even think about it. Then, he spent whatever was left, however he wanted. No tracking, no categories, no guilt. Some months he went out a lot. Some months he stayed in. Some months he had unexpected expenses. Some months he had extra cash. But every single month, without fail, $500 went into savings. $6,000 a year. And Marcus never felt restricted, never felt like he was sacrificing, never felt like he was failing, because he wasn't fighting against his own psychology, he was working with it. After 2 years, Marcus had saved $12,000, plus interest, money he didn't even think about. Money that just appeared because he set up a system that didn't require willpower or tracking or perfect discipline. Meanwhile, Jennifer had saved almost nothing. Despite trying harder. Despite more effort. Despite more guilt and stress and frustration. Here's what most people don't realize. The difference between Jennifer and Marcus wasn't about willpower. It wasn't about discipline. It wasn't even about how much they cared about saving money. It was about systems. Jennifer was using a system designed to fail. A system that required constant attention, perfect prediction, and inhuman levels of self-control. Marcus was using a system designed to succeed. A system that worked automatically. That didn't require him to be perfect or even to think about it. And here's the deeper truth. Budgets fail because they treat money management as a willpower problem. But it's not. It's an automation problem. You don't need to know where every dollar goes. You need to know where the important dollars go. The ones that build your future. The ones that create security and opportunity and freedom. Everything else? Honestly, it doesn't matter that much. Whether you spent $200 or $300 on restaurants last month isn't the issue. The issue is whether you're moving toward your actual goals. Most people get this backward. They obsess over the small stuff, track every coffee, feel guilty about every small purchase, while completely ignoring the big stuff, the things that actually matter. Like, are you saving for retirement? Do you have an emergency fund? Are you paying down high-interest debt? Those things will change your life. Whether you stayed under your $40 coffee budget, that won't change anything, except maybe make you miserable. Traditional budgeting is like trying to lose weight by counting every single calorie. Sure, technically, calories matter, but obsessing over them makes you crazy, makes you fail, makes the whole process miserable. What actually works? Building habits and systems that naturally lead to the outcome you want, without requiring you to track and measure and restrict every single thing. For weight loss, that means eating mostly whole foods, moving your body regularly, sleeping enough. Stress management, the big stuff that actually moves the needle. For money, it means automating your savings, eliminating high-interest debt, building skills that increase your income, spending consciously on things that actually improve your life, not tracking whether you spent $47 or $53 on gas last month. That's noise. That's not the signal. The people who succeed with money understand this. They don't budget in the traditional sense. They automate the important stuff and then relax about everything else. They set up automatic transfers to savings, automatic retirement contributions, automatic bill payments, and then they spend what's left without guilt or tracking or constant self-monitoring. Because they've already taken care of what matters. Everything else is just life, and life is supposed to be lived, not optimized to death. Here's what you should do instead of budgeting. First, figure out your actual financial priorities. Not what you think you should prioritize, what you actually want. Do you want to retire early? Buy a house? Start a business? Travel? Be debt-free? Get really clear on what you're actually working toward. Second, calculate how much you need to save each month to reach those goals. Be realistic. Run the numbers. Maybe you need to save $300 a month for a house down payment, or $500 for retirement. Whatever it is, know the number. Third, automate that saving. Set up automatic transfers on payday. Before you see the money, before you can spend it, make it disappear into the right accounts without any effort or decision-making on your part. Fourth, spend the rest however you want, without tracking, without guilt, without categories and limits and restriction. If you run out of money before the next payday, that's information. Maybe you need to increase your income. Maybe you're spending on stuff that doesn't actually make you happy. Maybe you need to adjust. But you're not failing. You're learning. You're getting information about your real priorities and your real life, not trying to force yourself into some theoretical budget that made sense on paper but doesn't match reality. This approach flips traditional budgeting on its head. Instead of restricting everything and hoping some money is left to save, you save first and spend what's left. Instead of tracking every dollar, you track the important dollars, the ones building your future. Instead of fighting your psychology, you work with it. You make the important stuff automatic and effortless, and you give yourself freedom and flexibility with everything else. Budgets fail because they're designed wrong. They assume you're a robot who can predict the future and control every impulse. They treat money as a math problem when it's actually a psychology problem. You're not failing at budgeting because you're undisciplined. You're failing because budgets are designed to fail. They create scarcity mindset. They require impossible predictions. They demand perfection. And they ignore the reality of how human beings actually function. The solution isn't to try harder at budgeting. It's to stop budgeting entirely. Build systems instead. Automate what matters. And give yourself permission to live your life without tracking every dollar. Because the goal isn't a perfect budget. The goal is financial security and freedom. And you can have that without ever making a budget again.